Hello, everyone. Welcome to my Immigration Sip and Chat. My name is Judith Hospitalis, and I run the J. Hospitalis Law Firm here in Cambria Heights, Queens, New York. It's at 224-10 Linden Boulevard, and that's in Cambria Heights, Queens, New York. I'm right on the main boulevard of Linden Boulevard and very visible from the street. There's parking and all of that. My social media platforms are New York City Immigration on Facebook and Instagram, and New York City Immigration 1 on Twitter. On Instagram, it's at New York City Immigration. My phone number is 646-943-4371, and you can reach me at jahospedales@gmail.com. So what I wanted to speak about tonight, I don't usually do the lives on Saturday, but I've had a lot of phone calls in the past couple of hours on the topic of what's going to happen in the raids tomorrow. So I figured, tonight I would say a little something about it, just for my watchers and people who have questions about what's going to happen or the possibilities for the raid. So, from what I understand, it is scheduled. It's scheduled to take place starting tomorrow and over a number of days, I believe, ending on the 18th of July. Now, supposedly, according to the information we've been provided so far, the focus is on a specific group of 2,000 who received their final orders of removal after going through an expedited special type process in the summer. These were families that came through the border, and according to what we understand, they received their final orders of removal, but have not left the country as of yet. And so that's where the focus supposedly is, going to be concentrated. However, ICE has made provisions for what's called collateral, arrest, meaning that people who happen to be in the vicinity, when they do attempt to take into custody individuals who have those final orders, and those other individuals who are around are also found to have some documents that are questioned, or they are found to be undocumented, they may also be taken into custody. So this may be a wider issue than merely the 2,000, which is what they're anticipating. Now, a lot of people probably will not be at the addresses that they have on record because of the notification that took place already 2 weeks ago, when the president telegraphed that this was going to happen through his Twitter messages. And, he's done so again. So chances are many people will have moved away from the residences that they gave, to ICE on their paperwork for the removal process. They hope to at least arrest about 10 to 20% of the individuals they are looking for. Now, whether or not that's going to happen, we don't know. We don't even know that it's going to go forward, but as of right now, that's what they're telling us, that it will go forward. And it's starting tomorrow and taking place for approximately 10 days. So I wanted people to be aware, just of that fact. It's supposed to be 10 cities that they're going to be focused on. These 10 cities have been known as what's called sanctuary cities, meaning they have either officially provided on the record laws that indicate they will be uncooperative, or at least not cooperating with the ICE agents or immigration services in any way about giving information up about people who reside in those cities, or they are actively assisting individuals who may have some document issues and still reside in the city. So those 10 cities are San Francisco, LA, Denver, Houston. New Orleans was on the list. However, I believe they have put a hold on that because of the weather conditions and the need to evacuate that city for the most part. So I believe New Orleans, whatever encounters or things they were going to that were going to happen there with ICE have been put on hold for now. So New Orleans is probably off the list, but the other cities are Atlanta, New York, New Jersey, tri-state area, Baltimore, and Miami finally. So it's supposed to continue on through July 18th. Um, so they're going to probably spread out amongst those cities first and go to the addresses that were listed on the notices as the places where these individuals who they're seeking would be residing. They probably will then spread further into known relations or employers, and I don't know at this point, how much further that net will go. But we envision that if it does take place, um, as been the history, it may not be as orderly and as limited as stated. Um, you know, from the past, it's been history that these encounters do tend to spread out. There has been no information specifically given about how they're going to manage people who are in families with mixed status, meaning that some have documented status and some do not. They have not really set out any procedures yet. But if families are taken in, meaning families maybe who came through the border together and were processed together, supposedly they'll be taken to the family detention centers in Texas and I believe it's Florida, where the other family, oh no, it's Philadelphia, sorry, in Philadelphia, where the other detention centers that house families are. Um, we don't know about, the whether there will be children in this group. They haven't been clear about that. The 2,000 that they're focused on, it's unclear. For the most part, they were family groups, family units that were put into these specific courts for families and taken through the process of seeking relief. And when they were not granted those reliefs, they were given these final orders of removal. And whatever addresses they have placed on those forms will be the addresses ICE will first go to, and then, they'll probably go further out into family members or other contacts that may have been known, or if they're watching to see if they find them coming in and out of those premises. So I wanted to let people know, your rights. I mean, we've discussed this many times before. Know your rights. If you are in your home and ICE agents do come to your home, you are not obligated to open your door to ICE agents unless they have a warrant signed by a judge, and not just a administrative warrant, meaning it's not signed by a judge. So what you want to do is ask them to either place it under the door or hold it up to the peephole or a window so that you can see, a judge's official signature. It must be a warrant signed by a judge in order for you to have to open your door. If it's not signed by a judge, if it just says Homeland Security and signed by an official of Homeland Security, you are not required to open your door at that point. And it's a better idea if you do not, because a lot of times there will be chaos and noise, and their questions will be answered later. People will be taken into custody, and then questions may be answered later, but that might come at a much later time, and sometimes too late. So if you know that there are issues with your documentation, and ICE does come to your door, or you know of a family member who has those issues and ICE comes to your door, remember, you're not required to open your door for a warrant unless it is signed by a judge. And usually the police are not traveling with ICE on these raids. Sometimes they will in certain areas. Supposedly, in a city like New York, there's been a little bit of a schism, meaning a break with law enforcement, because the official line is that the governor and the mayor have indicated they do not want the police force to cooperate with ICE. However, the Sergeants Benevolent Association leader has indicated that the officers should assist if they see an ICE officer in trouble. And so it's not clear whether they will or will not and face the repercussions later. It's going to probably depend on the individual and whatever their thoughts are on that subject. But officially, in most of these cities that are deemed sanctuary, the government, the policymakers, have determined that they will not be cooperating with ICE agents, and so they will not be traveling with them on these raids. So it usually will be a group of ICE agents. They should be covered, although I've heard in recent weeks there have been some encounters where ICE agents were not displaying their ICE uniforms, so they were not recognizable as ICE agents until after they were encountering the individuals. They dressed in undercover articles of clothing and pretended to be other workers and not ICE agents. So I want people to know this is occurring, and I want you to be careful if you know that you have documents that may be questioned, or you have family members who have documents that may be questioned. There will be these raids going on as of now. They will begin starting tomorrow and taking place in those cities that I named, which are San Francisco, LA, Atlanta, Denver, Houston, New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, Miami. New Orleans is on hold for now based on the evacuations. They will be taking place. Supposedly the focus is on these 2,000 family members that were put through this expedited track of courtroom procedures over the summer. Mostly people from Central America that came over the southern border and were kept in these family units. And they went through the process of requesting relief, and were ultimately found unable to receive that relief, and so they were given these final orders. But so far they have not departed. Perhaps some have, and just they're unaware of those departures. But those are supposedly the family units that they're focusing on. However, ICE is envisioning collateral arrest, meaning people around those individuals, and how far out it will spread, we are unsure of right now. So, just be aware of your rights. If someone indicating they are ICE or even Con Ed rings your doorbell, ask for ID. Before you open the door, display ID in front of the door, in front of the window, slip it under the door, whatever it takes. Before you open your door to anyone, be sure that it is, who they are who they say they are. Because we have had these encounters where ICE agents have purportedly dressed in garb of other agencies in order to gain access or to encounter people on the street that they were surveilling at their employment. So we had a case where a family went to claim a child who was at the border and taken into custody, and the family group went to take the child from the detention center. And in order to do that, they have to sign a form listing everyone in the household. and who they are and their status and how they're related to the child and their employment, give their history. It's supposedly for the betterment, the protection of the child, and it makes sense. In this instance, the aunt and the uncle went to claim this child, the niece, and after filling out the form and putting their information on the form, the child was released to their custody. But days later, the ICE officers surveilled the uncle's place of employment, and dressed as Con Edison workers were outside the employment wherever he worked, and picked him up from that location based on the information that was on the documents that they filled out in order to get the child out of custody. So these are the lengths that ICE has gone to in order to make these encounters. And so I want people to be aware that it's a possibility, that they will not always come in official as they're supposed to in the ICE outfits that you've seen all over the news media and all of that, labeled and everything. But it is your right, if you're behind your door, not to open your door unless there is a judicial warrant that is signed by a judge from a court, not the administration, not if it says Homeland Security and it's signed by an official of Homeland Security. That is insufficient to require you to open your door to that agent. So be aware of that. And you have the right to ask them to submit that information to you before you open your door. Technically, you don't even have to answer the door. If they have a warrant and it's a true warrant, then they will gain access. However, but if you would prefer to do it without them doing that whole pushing in the door thing, then that would be what you would want to know first. Ensure that it is a proper warrant signed by a judge from a court, not an administrative warrant that says Homeland Security and it's signed by an official. Those are not sufficient for them to gain access into your home without your permission. If you happen to be on the street and you encounter ICE agents, you have the right to remain silent. If you do have proper documents, you should show them. Don't show any false documents. If you don't have proper documents, then remain silent, or indicate that you want to speak to an attorney. Don't sign any documentation, because of course what will be put in front of you is something saying that you're willing to get removed in an expeditious fashion, which means no court process. So you don't want to sign away any rights. So do not sign any paperwork without an attorney present, because it will be put before you if you're in detention, and once you signed it, it's very difficult to dial that back. First thing you want to say is, I want to speak to an attorney, I wish to remain silent, and that's it. They cannot search your clothing or bags without justification. So they have to have the cause to do that. So if you want to remain silent, that's your right. If you are a resident, a U.S. resident of the country, not a citizen but a legal permanent resident, you're obligated to carry a valid resident card with you at all times. And during these type of situations, it's always a good idea to have your card and have it updated. I know a lot of people that I've encountered, they don't remember to renew those cards, and you should, because it just gives one more question as to whether or not you have valid status. So technically, you don't lose your status when your card expires, but it gives the enforcement agencies the ability to draw you in and detain you in order to ascertain that you do have legal status. So you want to avoid those things, because part of the contract of being a legal resident is that you carry a valid card with you at all times once you're over 18. So I want people to look at their cards, make copies of their cards. If they have valid cards, make copies, put the copies in different places, right? Give them to people that you trust, so that if you do lose that card, you have a record of your card and the card is valid. If it's not valid, come and see me. Get the card renewed as soon as possible, because we don't want you to have any questions if you are in fact in an encounter with one of these law enforcement officials for whatever reason, and give them the opening, to detain you in order to determine that you're a resident. Because citizens don't have the burden to prove they are citizens. It's up to the government to prove that. But when you are less than a citizen, meaning a resident or in some other type of status, the burden, is lower as far as, them having to determine that you're in a legal status before detaining you. So I want you to be aware of that and look at your cards, make sure they're valid, and if they're not valid, then make sure you come and see me so that we can get you an updated card. And if you have 5 years as a legal resident, file for your citizenship. This way you don't have these issues, and because we don't know which way the world is going to turn. It seems as though it's getting more and more crazy with immigration. It has not gotten better. It's just become more restrictive. And so if you have the ability to gain your citizenship, you should do so. But if you do not, at the very least, you should have, if you are a legal permanent resident, you should have a valid legal permanent resident card so you can move freely. In the coming months, New York City will allow undocumented individuals to gain their driver's licenses, which is a topic we spoke about last week, and which is great because at least they'll have some type of identification. It doesn't give you any, legal status, but at least it allows you, the ability to move around the city without, fear of not having an ID. In the coming year, people will be required to have a more stepped up, so to speak, driver's license with more security measures on it in order to travel even domestically. So that's coming in the future. So you may want to, look into getting that more updated driver's license, in the next few months. Because if you're traveling even domestically, it's going to be a requirement that you have the more, secure, I think that's what it's called, secure, driver's license. They have special logos on them. There's 2 different ones. And so the carriers will not accept the standard licenses in the next year, I believe it is. So you want to, update your documents. Anytime we're having, these issues with immigration, it's just heightened with everyone wanting to have all their ducks in a row, which is, the proper thing to do. But I want people to not be afraid. Go about your life. Someone called, do they have medical issues? Can they go to the doctor? Go to the doctors if you need to go to the doctor. I understand everyone's a little bit fearful because of, that's the whole point of this, right, is to engender fear in everyone and to keep them locked away or run away. But we're not going to do that. We're going to be informed, we're going to ask questions, and we're going to do what we need to do to proceed and keep battling because, you have the right, no matter what. You're human beings. We have civil rights, no matter what your document status is in this country. We still have civil rights in this country. Once you step into the United States, you have civil rights in this country. And I want everyone to remember that, even though it doesn't seem that way, watching, the imprisonment of children on the border. Don't get me started on that. But we're going to keep battling those things on and on and on. So far, I know that quite a few of the legal practices have filed a couple of lawsuits in New York City over this past week for the census issues and as well as these raids, because, it's just a violation of the civil rights of all of the residents in each city, that no matter what, you're in fear of walking the streets, doing what you need to do, applying for jobs, going to your hospital visits, going to school. It shouldn't be that way. People who even have documents are fearful, or they may have family members who don't have full status, and so they're fearful of, leaving them because they don't know what's going to happen when they're not there. Children have been reported to be afraid to go to school or go to camp because they're afraid that their parents won't be there when they get home. Um, and the same thing holds with people who have to go to work, and they're fearful that these encounters are going to happen at their jobs. So how do they support themselves if they don't work? So I want people to, be aware that they're happening, but not become so, restricted and, losing your power, losing your voice, that you don't live your life. Be informed, be bold, fight back. We all have to fight back. That's what we have to do. We have to continue to push and fight back, because that's the only way we win, right? We cannot roll over and just allow, these individuals who are doing this for political gain for the most part, because they don't have a true agenda. From what I've seen, and I'm talking both sides of the aisle, Democrat, Republican, same thing. They all are using immigration as this continuous football to kick around, to rah, rah, rah with, forgetting that these are human beings that are suffering at their hands. No one's coming up with a plan. They're just using it to get their bases riled up on both sides, and they don't seem to really have a desire to come to a conclusion on that. And so we have the advocacy community, the lawyers, the courts. This is where it's being pushed, and we will continue to battle. We need everyone who, is involved to stay involved, stay engaged, to vote. That's my other take. If you have the ability to vote, please vote. As we see, voting does matter in this country. So vote for everything, whether it's dog catcher or president. You must be engaged, because if you're not, then the consequences, you don't have a say in that. So do what you need to do. But if you know someone who is in an undocumented status or a questionable status, then take them, give them my information and point them in the direction, so we can maybe figure out what we need to do to get them in the right place. And if they are going through the process, then, give them this information. Remember, you don't have to answer any questions. The first thing, if you are in an encounter with ICE, you indicate, I wish to remain silent. I just want my attorney, and that's it. I'm not speaking. I'm not signing anything. I do not give my permission to search, my bags or anything else that I have on me, etc. And that's not to say that you may not be detained, but they cannot ask you any further questions until you see your attorney. So again, that's my take. I want everybody to know that these things are going to supposedly happen. They're scheduled for now, from what we know. It's in those cities that we've indicated, and it's going to take place until the 18th of July. From tomorrow until the 18th of July is when these sweeps are taking place. And there's been a lot of other rumors out there about the subways and, things. So far, New York City has denied that they're allowing ICE to do that. But, there have been these rogue issues, as I just spoke about, them dressing up as Con Edison. So they've been empowered, to do a lot of things that may not have happened in the past. So don't believe that it can't happen. But, also, don't jump on the rumors. Just be cautious and be aware. The driving thing, I always speak about that. Be careful if your documents are not in order when you're driving, or you're in a car with someone whose documents are not in order when you're driving, because that is usually how people encounter law enforcement, and then it just moves into, the other issues once you're in a law enforcement situation. And it's the easiest way to, gain that access to you is through stops in the car. Most people don't encounter law enforcement on an everyday basis, but they do get stopped for traffic infraction. And that's when it goes forward. If you're ever printed or anything, or there's further questions, then it can lead into, you know, ICE immigration issues. In New York City, as I said, NYPD has been um, instructed not to cooperate. However, there is a bit of a, dysfunction within the NYPD, because the Sergeants Association is telling, they're telling their members that they should assist ICE, because they are also law enforcement, people, and they should assist them if they find that they are in any trouble. But the official instruction is that they are not to cooperate with immigration officials in any way, as far as giving information or traveling with them for encounters or raids. But, whether or not that's going to happen, we'll see, because we do have this schism between the associations and also the upstate jurisdictions. They are allowing their enforcement agencies to assist ICE in various ways. So as far as the downstate New York City area, the official word is that they are not supposed to assist. Upstate, has signed agreements in many of the counties, so they are in some counties assisting. As far as how actively, it varies, but they are assisting. And we also have, even in the downstate New York City area, the some of the law enforcement unions have kind of riled up against being told they should not assist, because they feel they are also law enforcement and should assist any law enforcement officers if they are in trouble, is the way they put it. So whether or not they will actively assist, or just if there is a problem, we'll see. Hopefully, they won't take it beyond if they encounter an issue, but not to actively work with them, because that would open up a whole other issue. But for now, these 10 cities are where they're focused on. They're supposedly not focused on people who are not in that 2,000 number of these family units that were put through this expedited procedure and received final orders of removal. We'll see, because these things end up with collateral arrest. People who are around, people who happen to be family members, people who walk in to find out information, perhaps. Sometimes they have to show ID and all of those things, then it turns into something else. So if you are in any kind of situation where you do encounter immigration officials, ICE usually, or if you're at the border, it will be, Customs and Border people. If you encounter any of them, you do have the right to remain silent. They don't have the right to search you automatically. There has to be a basis for that search. You have the right to request your attorney, although, as not in criminal cases where the government provides one for you. In immigration cases, the government does not provide an immigration attorney automatically for you. So you have to, request your own attorney. But you do have the right to request your attorney and remain silent. So if you are encountered on the street in some way where, you're asked for documentation, and you know that you perhaps are not, fully documented, you can indicate that you wish to remain silent and you prefer to speak to an attorney. Just, be adamant about that. Don't sign anything, and just don't, give any further, don't explain, don't give any further information, don't justify it. That's, just what you say, briefly, very briefly. If you are a legal permanent resident, you are legally required to carry your valid permanent resident card with you at all times once you are over 18. Okay, so if you don't have a good card with you, um, then you should try to get that updated. And so contact me, and we can help you with that. Get an updated card. It doesn't mean that you lose your status, but the rules are that you're supposed to have a resident card with you at all times. If you are a legal permanent resident and over 18, you're supposed to have a valid card at all times. If you have the ability to gain your citizenship, I advise you, please do so as soon as possible. You want to be able to uh, be free of all of these issues and not have to renew that card every 10 years as well. Also, when you're traveling, every time as I tell people, every time you're traveling, if you're not a U.S. citizen and you're re-entering the United States, you are requesting admission into the United States. And so they can turn you back, they can view your whole history up to a certain point, to determine whether or not you are allowed to re-enter, even as a legal permanent resident. That's why there's the two different lines. And now they're fingerprinting everyone, and they're doing ocular as well. So, I'm sure people are hearing about this facial recognition stuff. A lot of the driver's licenses, that have been enhanced, they are using the facial recognition software. And so ICE recently was found to have been using some of the states' facial recognition software to go through and seek out individuals that were wanted by ICE through that facial recognition software. The states that had them, some of them were cooperative with ICE. Others, they went to court and gained a subpoena in order to gain that information from the facial recognition software that was being used in the states for driver's licenses. So it's just another way, that they are attempting to gain information as more and more cities become less willing to assist. They are using other tactics to find the individuals that they're seeking. Either they're going in these surveillance modes where they're watching known residences, known friends, known employers. They're waiting, to see if they can find the person. They're using facial recognition first to find the groups of people that they're seeking. They have been known to go to the courts. They can't any longer, for the most part, go inside the courts, but they do wait outside in some instances for people that they are seeking. So these are, some of the methods, but I just want people to, know their rights and understand that you are not required, one, if they come to your home, to open the door if they do not in fact have a judicial warrant signed by a judge. If there's just an administrative warrant, you're not required. The police are the only ones that can come in, through force with a warrant. ICE does not have that capacity to force themselves into your home in that way. So if that happens, then there will be further repercussions. But if you do decide that you want to open the door and ask to see the warrant, just make sure that it is an official judicial warrant before you allow them entry. And they're only supposed to ask about specific things, not searching through the home full scale. And you can request your lawyer at that time as well. If you want to just stay silent, that's totally up to you. Just be aware that they may be watching outside the home, surveilling. So, just be aware of that and understand that these things may occur. Knowledge is power, as I always say. I want people to be, informed about the possibilities, and so they can take it from there. If you have questions, seek me out. Again, the number is 646-943-4371. I'm at 22410 Linden Boulevard. That's in Cambria Heights, Queens, New York. My social media platforms, Facebook, it's New York City Immigration. Instagram, at New York City Immigration. And on Twitter, it's New York City Immigration 1. If you have questions, you can call me, text me, set up an appointment. If you know your documentation is a little bit out of order and you want to get that, straightened out, come and see me. If you have friends or relatives that are in those situations, point them in a direction or bring them in. It's best to take care of it and do what you need to do. I offer payment plans. I do attempt to make it, as easy as possible because my goal is to help as many people as I can to, get what they need to get in this immigration situation. So that's my little tidbit on a Saturday night. I want everyone to, just be careful, be cautious of, your surroundings and any encounters, and keep, knowledge out there. Spread the word. Supposedly they're not coming after, just far and wide. It's supposedly geared towards these 2,000 individuals that were on this expedited docket. It was a family unit type of situation where they put groups of families through these court processes all together, and this is what they have informed us is the list. This is the list that they're using. These 2,000 individuals on this list who received final orders of removal, and so they will be removing them or seeking to remove them. They probably will get maybe 10 to 20% is what their goal is, because of course President Trump telegraphed the information, so most people will not be at those locations any longer. But of course they will continue to surveil and go around to their family members as well, or employers, to spread out. So this is where the collateral problem may occur, where they move further and further out and start encountering others who feel that they are compelled to give up information or documents. Remember, you're not required to say a word. Don't say anything. If you know your documents are not in order, just shut it down. Simply say, I do not wish to speak any further. I wish to seek my attorney. I want to speak with my attorney. I have nothing further to say. You're not obligated to, say anything about your status or anything like that. If you have, legal residence, then you should show your documents, and you are required to show them. If you are a non-immigrant who was here temporarily on a temporary visa or something, you are also required to give up, those documents to show that. So you're supposed to carry your passport or whatever around with you all the time. But if you know that you're undocumented or you're using documents that are not yours, do not give those documents to ICE. Do not tell them that you have those things, because then there's no way to get back from that. So, keep it short and simple. I would like to speak with my lawyer, and I have nothing further to say. Just be aware, if you give them too much, people feel they need to talk. Don't do that. They're going to use that information against you, even if they say they won't. Believe me, they will. So don't seek, to give them too much information. Even if that you pretty much are okay, but maybe your green card is, expired or something. Just give them, whatever basic information you can, but don't, give more than you need to, right? And that's any law enforcement, right? That's the goal always. If you're in the presence of law enforcement, you just answer enough. You do not, try to give more than you need to, because it will be used against you, even if you're told that it won't be. Believe me, it will be. People, always feel the need to fill in spaces and silence, and that's what's used, as a tactic to get you to talk more, or to delve further into whatever the situation is. But this is the situation right now. They're only seeking, as far as they're telling us, those 2,000 individuals who are on that docketed list of the family units that were in that special proceeding through the summer. There may be other encounters, because if they're out in force, then they may feel empowered to do, other swings. This is what they've told us, is going to be the focus. Now, whether or not it'll be other people that will be, touched by it, that's going to be difficult to say, but you should be aware, that it may happen. And New York City is one of the focuses, as well as San Francisco, Atlanta, LA, Houston, Denver. Well, it was New Orleans, but they've put that on hold because of them having to evacuate. And also Baltimore and Miami were the others. So those are the cities where they're going to be focusing, supposedly all these raids, as they're calling them. This is the times we're in. So we must be aware of it. We must be active. We must be vocal. We have to be vigilant. And, we have to tell everyone. Tell our neighbors, tell our friends, tell our family. Everyone that has a situation, keep them informed. Keep them abreast of what's going on. It's our duty to help everyone that we know, everyone we surround ourselves with, and let it fan out, right? That's what we're doing. We're going to, make ourselves, the conduit for those informations to travel in the future. This is what I'm doing. This is why I'm here. This is why, I left USCIS, so that I could help people in my community stay informed, stay focused, and to help as many people in that way. That's my goal, and I hope that everyone who's with me does the same thing. So put it out there. Don't be afraid. Do what you need to do. Be empowered with the knowledge of what are your rights. Everyone in the United States has civil rights. Whether you're documented or undocumented, you do have civil rights. And you have the right to speak with an attorney, right? It doesn't mean that, as in criminal law where you get the attorney through the government, that is not the situation with immigration, unfortunately, yet. But you do have the right to seek your attorney, and you have the right to say that to the enforcement agency if you are encountered at some point. And that's the best idea to do. Rather than giving any information or signing any documents, the first thing you say is, I will not say anything further, and I want to call my attorney. Okay? So my little tidbit, keep in tune. If I find out any further information, this is supposed to go through July 18th. If I find out anything further, I will jump back on and keep you informed. But if you have any questions, again, seek me out. You know where to reach me. Right here on Linden Boulevard, 22410 Linden Boulevard, and that's the J. Hospitalis Law Firm. And it's 646-943-4371. Again, Facebook, New York City Immigration. Instagram, at New York City Immigration. And on Twitter, New York City Immigration 1. Any questions, reach me, call me, see me, tell your friends to do the same, and, go about your life. Do what you need to do. Live your life. The whole point of this stuff is to create fear and chaos in the communities that we live in, and we can't allow that to happen. So we're going to, do what we need to do to keep informed and stay vigilant and fight for our rights, to be human beings in this country in the same way that everyone else is. Okay, so be safe. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. Go to sleep. Rest yourselves with the knowledge that you have knowledge and you're not alone. All right? Have a good night, everyone. And we'll stay in touch. Take care. Bye-bye.